We are going to look at Rose's writing today. Her prompt said, what steps does Skip take to reach up high? Use first, next, then, and last. So let's go ahead and we're going to read Rose's writing. This is how Skip reaches. First, Skip looks up. She had to use clues from the story. And the clues she used were going to be from the photograph because it doesn't tell how Skip looks up. So she used the photograph to see, oh, Skip is looking up. Next, Skip lifts his arms. So she had to think about which order he had to do things. So first he looked up, then he reached his arm up. So that's why that's the next thing. Then Skip raises his foot. Last, he grabs with his hand. So she told us the 4 things he needed to do to be able to reach. Nice job, Rose. Now we're going to take a look to see what our question is for today. R says use the words first, next, then, and last to describe the steps needed to make Fran's motions. I'm going to need your help today to think about how does she make those motions. We have to go back and look in the story because we need to look for text evidence to answer our prompt. So let's go ahead and we will look back in the story. Okay, so here's Fran, and we can see Fran has a dog, because that's what this picture shows here, and here's Fran. So let's go ahead and reread what it says. Fran's dog can swim a lot. It kicks its 2 front legs. Fran can swim a lot too. Swim, swim, swim. Notice that it doesn't tell us how Fran swims. So we have to think, well, what did the dog have to do to swim? It had to kick its legs. So let's go add that idea to our notes. So kick legs. We have to remember that to swim, you need to be able to kick your legs. Okay, let's go back and think of something else. Well, what is she doing here? She has to use her arms to swim. So she has to use her arms. What do you do with your arms? You pull your arms. So we're going to add that idea. We pull our arms. Okay, what's something else you have to do when you swim? This is really important. So as you're swimming, you're under the water. What did I just do? What do you have to do when you swim? You have to breathe. You have to take a breath of air. That's something really important to remember when you swim. Okay. We have some really good ideas here for us to get started writing. Now you notice we had to make some inferences to find out some ideas on how to swim because it didn't give us all the words down here. We need to think of one more idea for how Fran can move in the water. So when I think about swimming, you've gotten in the pool. The first thing I typically do is I try to lay on my stomach in the water. So I try to float. So our first thing that we need to remember to do when you're in the water is float. So I'm going to add that idea as well. So we need to float. Okay, before we start writing, we need to decide which of these things is first. Because notice our first sentence has that word first in it. So what's the first thing you do? Should we kick our legs, pull our arms, breathe, or float in the water? The first thing we need to do is float. So I'm going to go ahead and write float down here. So first, Fran floats. And now that we have that idea, we're going to check off that we used it. Check mark. Okay, let's think of the next thing Fran has to do. Next, Fran, let's take a look. So after you're floating in the water, kick our legs, pull our arms, or breathe. Well, next, Fran probably pulls her arms because she's going to start pulling herself through the water. So we're going to say next, Fran pulls her arms. Good. Now we're going to think of the next. Then what does she do? I'll mark off that she pulls her arms. Well, next, Fran kicks her legs. So then Fran kicks her legs. And what does she do last? Last, she breathes. Last, she breathes. Okay, mark off that we also used that one. Let's go ahead and we're going to read our writing. First, Fran floats. Make sure you're reading along with me. Let's start over. First, Fran floats. Next, Fran pulls her arms. Then, Fran kicks her legs. Last, she breathes. We were able to answer our prompt about the steps Fran has to do to make her motion of swimming. Great job today.